Welcome to day 2 of Programming Language Basics. Before we jump into actual coding or installation basics, we will have a look at the architecture or some of the fundamental concepts which we need to learn before we learn any programming language. So today we will have a look at some of the fundamentals of architecture, the documentation principles like what type of comment you have to give, and also getting started with reading a code and applying the programming techniques. So, when we are programming, you should be aware that there is a three-tier architecture, which is the most famous model, where you have a presentation layer, which is mostly written in HTML, and the business layer, where comes your programming skills in C, C++, C#, Java, etc. And finally, the data access layer, which helps you to access the database and with the power of programming languages like SQL, etc. So overall, this is all we need. But things have changed, and now a famous pattern is the Model View Controller or the MVC pattern, where user sees the results with the help of view and the user uses the result or the data from the controller. And you have the model which takes care of business logic by getting the data from the database and displaying that to the user through the controller. So please note that in the MVC pattern, in the presentation layer, you have the view and the controller, and the business layer, you have the model which takes care of the business logic. So today we will focus on how to write a code which others can understand. And why this is important is because many times programmers write around 1000 lines of code and you might be given the chance to review the code and you cannot understand. So it's a good practice to start with comments either for your code or for your entire application with a help file. And the more code you read, the better code you write. For example, how do you learn languages? As a baby, you listen to how others speak or you watch the news channel and that's how you learn the language. So the more you read, the more you write. Or just listen to some talks on programming languages. And it's not just about the explanation of the code, but also the credibility. And next, we'll discuss some of the concepts like fundamentals of developing the technical design document, the change request, the bug history, the coding standards, which are followed in real-time environment in various organizations. And internally in comments, you have to ensure that comments are placed for each line or for each function at least, not each line, for the lines which are not self-explanatory. Coming to the development process. So this is one of the common scenario in any organization. Whatever development project you work, this is the common scenario. So you will be developing your code in your development environment. It might be a VM, and then that will move to the UAT environment where it will be tested. It is not similar to production, but it will not have the entire data as production. And finally, in pre-prod, which is a mirror of production, and in production, the code will be actually tested where actual users are using this. So many times it's good to put your code in GitHub or SVN or TFS and ensure that the version of the code is kept safe. And using this process, the code is reviewed, built, and tested and deployed. And once your code goes for its publishing phase, or after the codes are published, once it goes to the maintenance stage, it might come to your team for again some change request. That time again you can follow the same process where you have to do the changes in the dev box, then it will be tested in the UAT or pre-prod and finally published to the production. Coming to the details, we always have to focus on giving right names. Just as your parents think a lot on giving a name for you, you need to think a lot when writing a program. There are thousands or millions of programmers, and you might be just contributing by writing one beautiful program. So you need to really think of what name you have to give. We have to keep that unique And just from the name, you should be able to understand what function it is going to perform. And the name should not be too lengthy, and try to use Pascal casing or for functions and camel casing for variables. Constants, if you use, should be in capital letters. So this is an example of camel casing. If you look at this, C starts with capital, it's a word camel, and the next word is case, and the C starts with capital. Comments. So why am I focusing on comments before jumping into coding? So it is one of the most important concept in any programming language. Before you learn to declare a variable or print a statement, the first thing you need to learn is how to put a comment. Okay. So comment, you don't need to comment for anything which is obvious in the code. You can mostly give single line comments or multi-line comments for the entire application. And please ensure that you use proper style and indentation. A proper coding standard should be discussed within your team or your organization. And if you're writing code as a single user, have some consistency which you can use. Look at this picture. In this picture, instead of writing all the code without any indentation, it might look ugly or it's just so boring. So if you put some comments and ensure that the braces are put at the right space and the coding starts with a tab, it really looks good to read. For example, in this if-then statement, it might get very confusing for the many loops or too many if conditions. So if you put the proper tabs, you will know where it starts and where it ends. Okay. So coming to the actual comments. So there are two types of, you have a single line comment and a multi-line comment in any programming language. So let's just try to discuss that with PowerShell now. So if I want to type a single line comment, I just put the comment in this particular symbol, hash, and I just start writing the comment. For example, if I want to get the date, I will just say get hyphen date. And when I execute this, it will display the date. Now, if I want to put the multi-line comment, usually I open with the brace, and then in some program, in PowerShell it is this, in other programming languages it might be asterisk. So you just have to start it and then end it in the similar manner. For here, how to end this using the hash and close brackets. So over here I can, for putting multi-line comments, I will put getting date and I will just start CLS get hyphen date. So in PowerShell, there is a quick, let's just run this again. There is a quick, very quick tip. So there is a beautiful way where I just put Control J, and if I want to put advanced function, if I select this, a lot of code is available, and this is a beautiful way of getting the comment without typing. So to repeat, in PowerShell, single line comments start with hash, and multi-line comments are typically used to add descriptive help at the start of a script, but also work to embed comment text within a command. And let's go for SQL for the database language. In SQL also, we can put comments. In SQL, I'm just using an online editor now. I'll just put the comment by using two dots. I'll just say select all customers, and let's run the SQL. It will display the result here. So next, let's just go for HTML. In HTML, this is the way you comment a line of text. You open the code, less than symbol and end it with greater than symbol, and then exclamatory mark and two hyphen. For example, this is a simple HTML file. I've commented this using the steps described so far. Now let's just look at some of our additional coding practices. And please note that do not use literal numbers or literal strings. For example, I equal to 1 to 7. So if you know that it's going to end as 7, put them as a constant so that we can use that later. And if it's a meaningful name, for example, number of days in a week, you can use that as a constant. And also try to break a large complex section of code into smaller comprehensible modules. And in SQL, the comment, as I already discussed, begins with hyphen hyphen or an asterisk slash and an asterisk. And please note that do not prefix stored procedures with sp underscore because it is reserved. So in any programming language, try not to identify what are the keywords or the reserved words first. and try not to use them. And do not use at the rate in transact SQL because it is reserved for global variables. And try to use all uppercase for keywords and mixed case for database elements as tables, columns, and views. So with this, we have completed the most important discussion of how to add comments. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.